Hello, welcome to another episode of Forgotten Cemeteries of the Pacific Northwest. Today we're in Cherry Grove, which is located in Cherry Grove, Oregon, Washington County. We'll mention that the road that leads to this cemetery is in Gaston, it appears. Alternative names to this cemetery include Cherry Grove Baptist, that's the only one I could find. Valley Baptist Church, which is in Cherry Grove, maintains the cemetery. That church used to be called Swedish Baptist Church of Cherry Grove. The cemetery was a little challenging to find. The cemetery is only indicated by 2 posts. I don't know if you could see that way down the road. It's off a gravel road. I actually had to turn around. So let's visit some of the local residents and hear their story. A little history behind the cemetery. It was established in 1894. There's an estimated 25 to 100 burials. It's about 1.83 acres. I could tell you, I did like a little pre-walkthrough, and man, I only counted 20 to 30 headstones. So it's a very small lot, very hidden as well, as I said earlier. There are some individuals buried here who the roads are named after them, Lovegren and Patton being the 2 big ones in Cherry Creek. Kind of went down this path on how the graves ended up here. And to find a grave user, posted a cool little story. He used to work on one of the farms around here, I guess, and he used to graze cattle there. And maybe he was a farmhand during this time, but he did notice exposed markers on the farm that were not buried here at the time. And he also mentioned in the 1960s, when the farm was sold, those graves were moved to Cherry Grove. From my understanding, those graves belonged to the Patton family. And here's some of the Patton family. Robert, Elizabeth, Mary, and Robert are buried here. A little bit about Robert. William and Mary Patton are his parents, and they came to Oregon in 1850 from Illinois. They first settled in Carlton, a town about 20 to 30 minutes south by car from Cherry Creek. William was a cabinet maker by trade. In 1860, William would purchase a 600-acre lot and move his family to the valley west of Gaston, which is now named Patton Valley, actually. Apparently, the Pattons had to ford up their log cabin, having guns in the corners with holes for firing in the event of an Indian attack. A little bit about Robert. Robert and his wife Elizabeth would buy a farm west of Cherry Grove. They had 10 children together. As you can see, they share a headstone here with Mary, who was 2 years old when she died, and Robert, who was only a few months old when he died. And here's Matthew and Roxanna Patton. They share a headstone together. They married in 1868. In 1869, they purchased the farm from Matthew's parents, William and Mary, we just talked about. A little bit about Roxanna. She came to Oregon in 1852 when she was 6 years old. Her mother is quoted as saying she bawled the entire step of the way, so that must have been lovely. During the migration to Oregon, Roxanna's family had to bury her 2-year-old sister, Percy's Galt, who died of cholera. I guess they rode wagons over the grave to hide it. Maybe they felt like they might get tracked. I wasn't really unsure about that, why it said that. It says she's buried at Burnt Hills by Smoke River. I came a little curious because of the epic name. Sounded like something out of Lord of the Rings. So apparently along the Missouri River, there's banks of smoking steam emitting sulfuric acid fumes. A little scary. Lewis and Clark also noted they encountered the site. No flame or fire was present, just searing heat. It was also noted that Lewis spent the longest by the crevices and reported he felt ill upon returning to the boat, having to take strong medicine to subside the effects of the exposure. Here we have Pembroke Pempatten. He was born in 1871. Sadly, Pem fell from the rafters while working on a sheep barn. His death certificate says skull fracture. I did read that Patton family raised merino sheep. Driving around Oregon, now I know what the hell I'm looking at because I see those things everywhere. Here we have August and Bostalda hope I'm saying that right, Frid, both came to the U.S. from Sweden in 1892 by ship. They share a headstone with their son Andrew, pictured on the right. They did have another son named Adolf, but he's buried in Forest View. It says Andrew and Adolf were both born in Minnesota, so I'm guessing that's where the Frids came from. Here's John Peter Johnson and his son Walter. They were also from Sweden, and you can see they share a headstone, father and son. Hopefully you could see that, but that's Minnie Bell Nelson Blum. And the reason I picked to go over this headstone is I remember this last name from the Hill Cemetery. It seemed quite popular. I also remember saying I couldn't find anything on him, but her name led me to a pretty famous individual in the area who's named Birgettta Rachel Birdie Blum Nixon. She was born in 1907. She's not an Oregon pioneer like I normally like to focus on, but she's a name of importance in the area because she was a local historian. Apparently she wrote a book called Cherry Grove, A History. There's two Forsberg headstones here. Just wanted to mention John Harold Forsberg. He was born in 1889 and served in World War I, actually. Right here we had Hedvig and Olaf Anderson. They were also both from Sweden. Kind of wonder if they traveled with the Frids. Their headstones was a hidden one. You can see those big bushes growing over it. I don't know if this is a typo in Find a Grave. Again, this is what I kind of run into, and you go down these tracks, what's accurate and what isn't. This is Nels Harry Wickander. If you check Find a Grave, it says he served in World War I as a trench mortar battery. But if you walk over a few feet, you see Arvid Runo Wickander, same last name. And you can see he served in World War I, trench mortar battery. So most likely a mislabel, but not sure. Probably the most famous individual buried here, Levi Alton Lovegren. Sort of had an international spy reputation. A little bit about his background. Levi and his father August started Cherry Creek. A little bit about Austin, his father, who is not buried here. He's buried at Falls City Cemetery. He was born in Bortoff, Värmland, Sweden, with the birth name Olsson. Not really sure how to say that one. Later he changed it to Lofgren, and then that became Americanized to Lovegren. August became a Baptist man, which was illegal in Sweden during this time. This would cause him to move to Minnesota to live with his uncle. Kind of seeing a trend here that the Swedes love to go to Minnesota during this time. He would meet Levi's mother, Hilma Nelson. August actually happened to be a carpenter back in Sweden by trade. And fortunately for him, Seattle was having sort of like an industry boom during this time. To add, Seattle had a large Swedish community, so it made sense to move him and his family to Seattle, where Levi was actually born. August took a bit, but he was eventually successful in building a mill in Preston, Washington. August, however, had bigger things in mind. He wanted to create like a Baptist community. This is where he started to eye up Cherry Creek. He built up this fantasy that he could create like a utopian society, apparently, where Baptists would flock to his town. So him and his son Levi got to work, where Levi served as an overseer of a dam to be built in the area. Levi oversaw the construction of the dam because he was a civil engineer at this time. The idea of the dam is it would provide electricity, a swimming area for residents, and a log pond for the mill in Cherry Creek. That dam would actually fail in 1914, causing Levi to give up on civil engineering. So let's talk about Levi's journey. After giving up on civil engineering, he would become a Baptist missionary. Early into his Baptist career, he would travel to China and spread the good word after World War I. He actually spent several years and China, learning about their culture and their people. It wasn't normal for American to be over there during this time. So he was learning things that even the government apparently didn't even know about. Before World War II, he was actually pulled out of China because tensions started to rise. And after World War II, the government actually went to the Baptist missionary. Their inquiry was if Levi could lead a team to locate American POWs, because that was the rumor over there. His team would actually explore Vietnam, looking for any signs of American POWs. Levi's team included 1 nurse and 10 out-of-the-box missionaries. They weren't exactly the elites. This team would eventually be captured by the Chinese government after they learned of Lovegren's background. The team was held in prison, and international news was covering it at this time. The headline was something like "American spies held prisoner," and to the point, Dwight Eisenhower, who was the president during this time, got involved. However, the Chinese government refused to talk to America, and several other countries went to bat for us, fortunately. And I think I read that Lovegren and his team were held for about 5 years in prison. Eventually, a prison swap took place, but the Chinese, for some reason, refused to release Levi. I'm guessing it's because he was a leader, so they kind of held him as a prize. Finally, Levi's mother became ill, and the Chinese finally would release him. I guess they kind of played the sympathy card from what the story says. Unfortunately, Levi's mother died before he got a chance to return home. Levi would live out his years here in Cherry Creek. As you can see, he died in 1983. All right, it's time to start our little mini tour. This is a very small lot, as I kind of shown you down there. I hope you could see those 2 posts. And you kind of drive up this dirt path, and then you end up there, similar to Hill Cemetery. There's one way in, one way out. But Hill Cemetery actually had like a little roundabout, which was convenient. There are no signs indicating that this is a cemetery or a Cherry Grove cemetery. Google Maps even got confused to send me way down the road. And I remember driving past, and I was like, no, there was the 2 posts, because one of the notes online said, look for the 2 posts. So thank you to whoever you were. Here, Nixon, U.S. Navy. It's another beautiful morning in Oregon, except it's cold. I'm sure it'll be 80 degrees later today. It's like 20 in the morning and 80 during the day. There are some recent ones here as well. A lot of ones buried in the 80s from what I can see. Another U.S. Army Korea. There are a couple war vets buried here. Hill. That one's pretty recent. That is a cool looking headstone with the bald eagle. This looks like an infant's grave. 1979. Wow. I don't think anyone's taking care of it. Axel Johnson. That's a cool name, Axel. Couple Lees here. I didn't see much on them. We do have a World War II vet over here. U.S. Army Air Forces. Couple Lees. Looks like there's about 6 in total. I don't think there's anything down here. Kind of looked around. Oh, I guess you never know. Pretty overgrown. But we'll check just for the fun of it. Yeah, nothing so far. Andersons, we talked about them. Pearsons, and what was that one? Whitcanders are concentrated back here. Kind of at the back of the cemetery now. There was one here. They had one of those little description style ones, but you can see it completely worn away. It was water damage, I guess. Frickson. Pretty well protected. Two little headstones at the bottom of the main headstone. Johnson. Also one of those markers here by this tree, and the place completely gone. It must have just dissolved. Actually looks like it's part of it over there. This was the Patton's lot right here. Apologies, the camera's shaky. Uneven terrain. Pearson. Saw that name a lot in the cemetery. Lovegren. Talked about Levi and his father August. There's more Lovegrens. It's like Mildred and Ida. Finally, Woodward. Didn't find anything on them. So that is it for the cemetery. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's kind of a small little lot. Definitely sort of forgotten. I'm seeing some pretty recent flowers once in a while. But if you have any recommendations on other small pioneer cemeteries in the state of Oregon, feel free to leave a comment. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day.